In the compact car world, the Hyundai Elantra may not be the first nameplate that you think of in a segment dominated by the Honda Civic and Toyota Corolla. However, the Elantra nameplate has been in the States for well over 30 plus years, and about 3 years ago, Hyundai introduced an all-new 7th generation. This vehicle in general is Hyundai's second best-selling model here in North America. Now for 2024, the Elantra nameplate is finally getting some small updates in terms of the exterior styling, but when this generation first debuted, it really raised the bar in terms of technology, style, and of course, performance. Now, as you can see this week, we are testing out this fully loaded Elantra Limited painted in this new color called Ultimate Red. And the big question I want answered, if you guys are in the market for a fuel-efficient and more affordable commuter compact sedan, how does the 2024 Hyundai Elantra continue to stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling changes for 2024, I thought I'd pop the hood and remind you guys what's powering this thing. Now, here in North America, Hyundai offers a choice between 4 different engines. This motor here is the base engine. It's also the more fuel-efficient option. It's a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Hyundai portfolio, you'll know this engine has been around for a few years. It's a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, part of their Smart Stream engine family. It doesn't even have direct injection, but it does have variable valve timing to produce 147 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque. It all goes out through a continuously variable transmission called an IVT. There is no more manual transmission available on the Elantra unless you go up to the fire-breathing Elantra N, where you can get a 6-speed manual, and front-wheel drive is your only drivetrain configuration. There is no all-wheel drive available like you might find on something like the Toyota Corolla, a Subaru Impreza, or a Mazda 3. Now, the upside with this powertrain, even though it is down on power compared to its rivals, is the fuel efficiency is decent at 31 in the city, 40 on the highway. It's designed to run on regular fuel. It has a 12.5-gallon fuel tank. You're looking at around 400 plus miles of range on a full tank. Hyundai doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. We'll test it out when we get the vehicle out on the road. We also don't know what the top speed is. I'd estimate maybe it's around 120-ish miles an hour. It honestly struggles to get up to those higher speeds with so little power and so little torque. And because the vehicle is a small compact sedan, well, small is relative, it does weigh a pretty decent amount considering how much technology is in it. This vehicle, as it sits, weighs in at around 2,800 pounds. Now, closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling changes, which, if you guys remember, this generation first came out in 2021, and it was a little controversial, especially when you started looking at the rear and the side profile. You can see for 2024, Hyundai gave it a small, light refresh where the front fascia has been softened slightly. You can see this limited trim is the top-of-the-line, luxury-oriented commuter version. It's painted in this new red color called Ultimate Red. It definitely looks good along the body lines. There's a lot of metallic fleck in it. And then even the base Elantra SE comes with LED headlights. Now, the Limited does get a slightly upgraded projector style LED. You can see there's an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, LED low and high beams. No fog lights on the vehicle, but you can see the grille has been enlarged. It has functional openings. There's the new version of the Hyundai logo there with the kind of metallic accent through it, which makes it look a little bit more modern. You can see the front bumper also has a slightly more aggressive look. There's a nicely integrated front camera up there at the grille, and then you also have nicely integrated parking sensors. This car in general has a full 360 camera, which is kind of nice to find, especially in the compact sedan world. Now, moving around the side profile, if you guys missed the old Elantra hatchback, sadly, here in America, Hyundai only offers it as a 4-door sedan. Its overall length is among the larger in the segment at 185.4 inches. It has a 107.1-inch long wheelbase. So again, this is on the bigger end. There was a time where this was about the size of a mid-size car, maybe like 25 years ago. And sadly, again, no hatchback, no coupe body styles. Hyundai only offers it as a sedan. Now you can see, looking at the wheels on this limited trim, these are the standard 17-inch wheels, which have been upgraded and restyled for 2024 with the 5-spoke directional design with the 2-tone finish to them. It's riding on a 225 by 45 R17 all-season Kumho tire. You have all-disc brakes and independent front suspension, and then a multi-link torsion beam, semi-independent at the rear. So if you guys want an independent rear suspension, you have to go to the N line or the Elantra N, where it'll upgrade the rear suspension. The body lines, I will say, on this car definitely make the wheels look a little bit small, and that's kind of a trick to your eye because of how tall and how wide the vehicle looks. Now you can see this limited trim includes body colored side mirrors, integrated turn signals, a nice camera mounted there. They're not power folding, however. The limited also includes chrome along the belt line. You have a standard sunroof here, which allows you to open it up and tilt it if you'd like. And you can really see from this angle that really strange character line that kind of goes in between the two doors, the front and rear doors. I think Hyundai called it like a parametric design to it. Geometric design, something like that. You can see moving around the rear styling looks pretty much the same as the pre-refreshed model. The taillights are very controversial, along with the kind of trunk lid. You can see this kind of reminded me of like a Voltorb or a Pokemon when I first saw it. It has, again, the new Hyundai logo right there. The taillights are a mixture of an LED and an incandescent design. There is an LED light blade that kind of goes along the rear of the taillights. The rear of the trunk lid, you can see Elantra is boldly spelled out at the back. The rear diffuser is slightly different, and there's also some nicely integrated rear parking sensors. No visible exhaust tips. You're going to find that, of course, I believe on the N line and the Elantra N. But overall, it's a clean, handsome, and conservative design that still, again, kind of looks a little controversial depending on your taste. Now, opening up the trunk lid area, you can see the cargo space is decent for a sedan. You have a little over 14 cubic feet of space. That's unchanged. You can see the seats fold down in a 60/40 manner. If you look underneath the cargo floor, Hyundai still gives you a temporary spare tire along with some storage. There's actually space here for a full-size spare if you guys wanted to do that. You can also fold the seats down from here. There are hinges that crush your cargo, but overall, the space back here is certainly very usable. So on the outside of the 2024 Elantra, things haven't changed too much, but let's go ahead and hop into the interior where Hyundai made even less changes for this refresh. The first thing I want to show you guys, however, is the key fob. You can see this is the newer Hyundai key that they first introduced on the Ioniq 6. It's a really interesting egg-like shape to it with your usual buttons for lock, unlock, remote start, panic, and you can also open up the trunk from that button here. No smart park feature. That's on the more expensive Hyundais, and as you probably noticed, if I flip the key on its side, there's the Hyundai logo, so it's a pretty cool design. If you don't want to use this egg-like key, Hyundai also offers their digital key 2, where you can use your smartphone as a key. That is, of course, standard on this limited grade, which is a nice tech touch for those of you who want to use your phone as a key. Now you can see traditional door handle. There's no auto walkaway lock or unlock feature with Hyundais. If I just touch that area there, that locks the door. You can see no power folding mirrors. Touch the back of the handle, that will unlock the door for you. Now, looking at the interior, you can see my test car with the Ultimate Red has the black H-Tex. It's a vegan fake leather material. The limited trim gives you the leather. The other two trims, I believe, give you a cloth seats. The N line gives you a mixture of a cloth and a leatherette material. You can see these seats. They have a nice look to them. I love the contrast stitching and piping. I love the perforations. You have an 8-way power driver's seat with 2-way lumbar. Sadly, there's no ventilated seats. I feel like Hyundai used to offer ventilated seats, but they took it away after a couple of years when this generation first came out. Correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember off the top of my head, but you do have 3-level heated seats. No memory seats on this car. You might find that in some rivals, but it makes a pretty good first impression when you open the door. Sadly, when you start poking around the materials, you can see this reminds you it's an economy car. You have hard touch plastic material in the upper portion. You do have some nice faux leather with the perforation and the contrast stitching. It's slightly padded here where you rest your elbow. Window controls, I will say they have a slightly cheaper feel compared to other Hyundai models, and they're not aligned in like an alloy material. It's only one touch up down for the driver, not even one touch down for any of the other windows. I don't like that. I wish Hyundai would have at least made the two front windows one touched up and down. Silver painted plastic door handle here. You have the upgraded Bose stereo system, which sounds decent. If you guys are an audiophile, you may want to consider that. You have hard touch plastic here with a little bit more storage. There's like a nice little tweeter speaker there, accented in a silver painted plastic, but overall, you can see it makes a decent first impression. Now, when you get inside, let's go ahead and hop inside. This vehicle has around 5.3 inches of ground clearance, and it has that typical low sedan step-in height. As I shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. It sounded a little tinny, which kind of reminded me of the Toyota Corolla, this car's main rival. Now, starting the vehicle up, you can see stop button is located where you'd expect it to be on the dash. When you turn the vehicle on, this is not a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, so it has just a traditional starter noise. The engine reminds you that this is an economy car. It's buzzy, it's a little noisy, it's not the smoothest engine, but we'll talk about that more when we get into the driving scene. Now you can see the rest of this interior, just at a glance, everything looks pretty much the same as the pre-refresh model, which is interesting. I thought Hyundai would have made a couple of changes. The only difference I'm noticing here is the steering wheel. You have the new Hyundai logo here where it kind of has that metallic finish to it, which looks nice. The steering wheel itself is like a 2-spoke design. with a nice leather stitching, with cross stitching. The leather also feels high quality. You have a manual tilt and telescoping wheel, which gives you a good amount of adjustability and range, which is nice. No paddles on the wheel for this trim. I think the N line gives you that. You have your controls here to control your cruise control, to control that screen over there. The horn, it sounds okay. It doesn't sound as pathetic and puny as the horn in the Toyota Corolla, which is nice. In terms of the infotainment system, the Limited comes standard with the two 10.25-inch displays. So you have a 10.25-inch display in the instrument panel, which is customizable. I can switch the drive mode here, and you can see the gauge cluster changes. That hasn't changed compared to the pre-refresh model. And then over here, you can see you have a 10.25-inch display with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, it is not wireless. I have my older iPhone 12 sitting in there because I'm using my 14 Pro Max to film this. And you can see it's connected via USB-A. The screen itself the graphics are fine, although again, the new Kia K4 has the bigger version with I believe the wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, so Kia is going to have the better option if you guys want to buy a compact car in the Hyundai Kia family. But this is certainly still very decent. There is a big portion here that's unused, but again, it has kind of like a curved piece of glass that makes it look like one screen. This right here, you think it'd be like a vent. It doesn't illuminate or anything like that. I think this is a place where you can put magnets in Korea. You have your vents down here. And then in terms of the dashboard materials, you can see hard touch plastic, or I'm sorry, this is slightly padded, but again, it feels a little bit cheap. It continues over to this upper portion of the dash where this feels more hard touch. This is slightly padded. There's some aluminum look trim. Down here you can see it's hard touch, and there is actually surprisingly some decent ambient lighting in this car. 64 different colors. There's a nice continuous line over the dash. At night it looks decent. It's nice that Hyundai includes that only on the Limited trim, however, so you have to go for the high trim to get that. Down here you can see there's some traditional knobs and buttons for the audio controls, for your dual zone climate control. There's a little climate screen here. You have your 3-level heated seats. Again, no cooled seats anymore on this model. I feel like Hyundai used to offer that. Your wireless phone charging pad is right here. Which is also a nice touch. It's been slightly updated, but I really wish Hyundai would have gone to a USB-C for the actual media connection. Down here you can see your drive mode selector button. This controls your IVT, continuously variable transmission. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your full 360 camera with a top-down view with front and rear parking sensors, which is nice. You can also go click on that. It'll go into a full 360 perimeter scan view. This is what you expect to find in some higher-end European cars. So this is nice because you won't even find something like this in the Honda Civic. Honda just doesn't offer a 360 camera. Down here you can see electronic parking brakes, some piano black plastic, which I don't love, and then you can see there's this big grab handle here, but again, a lot of the materials, they feel a little cheap even for the segment. I don't love that. You can see nice size cup holders, padded center console area here. Open that up, you can see it offers a decent amount of storage, although again, not the biggest center console. You have to keep that in mind, this is a small car. The seats, like I mentioned earlier, a fake leather material called H-Tex. They look good, and they're also pretty comfortable. Even though this is a fake leather, I found the seats to be supportive, and they're comfortable on longer drives. Open up the glove compartment, you can see it just cheaply falls. It's not damped or lined with felt. It offers a decent amount of storage space. It's a bin style. I can see the mirror here. It's not auto dimming, or at least I think it's auto dimming. There's no manual retraction here, but there's no button, so I don't think it's auto dimming. You have a standard sunroof, which has a traditional manual shade. It also tilts open. You have incandescent lighting here as opposed to LED lighting, so that makes it look a little cheap. So overall, the interior definitely feels on the cheaper end. The tech is, nice at a glance, but I really think that Hyundai should have added wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. But overall, visibility is good, space is decent. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat because I want to show you guys the space back here. But one of the reasons why the Elantra is popular is because it has a decent sized back seat. Hyundai says you have around 38 inches of legroom back here. That's a good 4 inches more versus what you find in a Toyota Corolla, for example. You can see rear seat materials are hard touch plastic, so it's pretty cheap back here, but it is padded over here. It's not padded here where you'd rest your elbow, sadly, so that's a nice terrible downgrade that I don't really like to see. But getting back here, you can see with that roof over here, you do have to duck your head a little bit to get back here. At 5'7", this is pretty much where I'd have the seat to drive. You can see I can cross my legs and get very comfortable back here and stretch out, which is nice. Surprised there's a hump here because this vehicle does not offer all-wheel drive. There shouldn't be a hump. There should be a flat floor. No rear seat air vents. You can see that'd be a nice place to put them. You do have 2 USB-C charging ports. You have 1 storage pocket here, and then you can see, fold this down. There's your armrest with 2 cup holders. And then in terms of the headroom space, you can see at 5'7", my head actually gets pretty close because the sunroof does take up some space back here. So overall, the back seat area is certainly on the bigger end of the class. I just would have liked to see Hyundai include rear seat air vents. no heated rear seats, which I think the previous generation offered. Slightly cheaper materials, but again, a pretty good amount of space considering what this vehicle competes with. So it's been a little over 2 years since I had a chance to review just a regular garden variety Elantra for you guys on the channel. And despite America's insatiable appetite for SUVs, the Elantra is very important for Hyundai because this is the brand's second best-selling model here in the US, which is impressive because, you know, they've got several different SUV models, but this kind of outsells almost all their SUVs except for the Tucson. The Tucson is, of course, their best-selling vehicle here in the States. So this Elantra, even though this refresh is a very, very mild one, it does address some of the concerns that this generation first had when it first came out. Now, this model that we're driving has the base powertrain. It's a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. It doesn't even have direct injection. It has continuously variable valve timing. Hyundai made no changes to the powertrain, essentially. It still makes 147 horsepower. That's a little bit more, around 8 more horsepower than the hybrid model that I tested back when I had one about a little over 2 years ago, 132 pound-feet of torque. It's also compared up with an IVT, a continuously variable transmission. So I never had a chance to actually 0 to 60 test this vehicle, and let's go ahead and see what we can get here on our usual stretch of road. Pretty sluggish off the line, come on. It actually will mimic shifts. 8.7 seconds there on that run. So that's actually about a half a second slower versus the time that I got in the hybrid Elantra 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, which, remember, that powertrain was essentially a smaller 1.6-liter engine with an electric motor compared up to a 6-speed dual clutch transmission. You can still get the hybrid powertrain. That's the most, fuel efficient version of the Elantra, but this is probably the more volume selling engine. I mean, the power itself, 8.7, 8.8 seconds, is definitely on the slow side. You're going to find slightly quicker acceleration from some of its rivals, especially if you're looking at the turbocharged offerings. Hyundai still offers the Elantra N-Line, which the N-Line is going to give you, 201 horsepower paired up to a dual clutch transmission, which, could be worth the upcharge if you guys want more speed. But let's try it this time. We won't brake torque it, though. Definitely a noisy engine that reminds you you're driving an economy car. 9.1 there, that's with it more going slightly uphill. So that 0 to 60 time is lethargically slow, but people don't buy a vehicle in this class to go fast. That's not the point of this vehicle. It's a commuter car. I do it for demonstration purposes. That time is a little slower as well versus the last Toyota Corolla hybrid that I tested. I'm sorry, it's a little faster, than the last Corolla hybrid. So that is definitely a good thing. I should be driving the latest version of the Honda Civic at some point as well, potentially this summer. But overall, the Elantra is still a perfectly fine commuter car. I just don't particularly love how buzzy and slow revving this engine is. Now, the transmission in this car, that continuously variable transmission, is a very good CVT. It's responsive. If I put my foot down, it automatically will adjust the ratios, and it behaves like a traditional automatic. So people who are driving this vehicle, you're going to get in it and you're not going to really know that you're driving a CVT. It's very smooth. It's very responsive. I've been driving the car in its sport mode. This car has independent front, a torsion beam, semi-independent at the rear, and it's definitely not the sportier setup Elantra. I just also finished driving the Elantra N, the hottest version of the Elantra, last week. My video on that vehicle also should be up as well. It really shows that the chassis of the Elantra is a wonderful place to start for, driving enthusiasts. The steering, even in this regular limited, is surprisingly quick ratio. It has decent heft to it, just not much in terms of feedback. The suspension tuning is definitely on the lighter side for the limited trim, but that gives you better ride quality. This car doesn't have enough power to even smoke the tires, the front tires, when you're putting your foot down, but you can see just with moderate acceleration, I'll switch the drive mode here into its smart setting, which is kind of like an adaptive setting, and that should help to quiet things down because in sport, the CVT is trying to, again, give you a better acceleration, better handling, or stronger shifts or quicker shifts. There's also a sport mode in the transmission itself, which if you put it in this sport mode, it automatically puts the drivetrain into sport mode. It just basically makes it so it will shift gears, ratios even quicker. Most people will just drive this thing in normal mode or smart mode. You'll just kind of tootle around doing your daily commute type of activities. And the Elantra will do just fine, you know, when you're driving it at like 7/10, which is how most people are going to drive this thing. But just putting my foot down a moderate amount, you can see the RPMs will go to around 4,000. It will shift gears, ratios like a traditional auto, and the car feels like it has enough power to do, you know, your day-to-day task. I mean, you are going to notice the lack of horsepower and torque when you need to get up to higher speeds. That's where, you know, a turbocharged engine, a hybrid powertrain will certainly help with that. The hybrid Elantra is also still a really good powertrain combination, although I haven't had a chance to drive one for a little over 2 years, so I'm hoping Hyundai will send me one of those along with an N and an N line at some point as well, so I can do a full retest. But, you know, for the base powertrain, this compares very favorably to, you know, the base engine in a Civic and a Corolla as well, although I think the Corolla and Civic have more power than this. So, you know, the Hyundai 2-liter naturally aspirated engine, it could use an injection of technology. Direct injection would be nice, something that would just improve the horsepower into like the 160 or at least over 150 versus the 147 that it makes. In terms of, you know, just comfort, the seats in this model, these are the H-Tex fake leather. It's a vegan leather material. And I have to say, for an economy car, the seats are more comfortable than I expected them to be. They don't really have much in terms of bolstering. You're gonna, you know, move around and during spirited driving. But on a longer trip, I definitely found the seats to be quite pleasant. They hold you in place decently, and the padding behind them is good. Visibility is also good out of the front, the side, the rear. Hyundai does not offer any kind of like digital camera review mirror, but you do have their latest version of their, you know, Hyundai driver assistance package, where it has the DriveWise stuff. It has adaptive cruise, lane keep assist. All that is included on this limited trim, which all works fairly nicely. It does a good job of keeping you centered in the lane on those highway trips. In terms of the fuel efficiency, this model is rated at 31 in the city, 30 in the city, 41 on the highway. 3140 city. I'm always mixing up those numbers. In my week's worth of testing, I averaged just under 30 in mostly city driving, about 29.5 mpg, which is pretty decent. I think I got about 14 mpg better in the hybrid when I tested one 2 years ago. On the highway, this did around 37 mpg, so not quite as good as the EPA's numbers. But that's because I had the speeds higher at around 75, 80 miles an hour. If you slow down, you'll probably, you know, get closer to that 40 or maybe even above 40 mpg. This vehicle will do roughly 400 miles of range on a full tank, which is excellent. It also runs on regular gas. It has a 12-gallon fuel tank, so it's relatively cheap to fill up as well. But again, if you want maximum efficiency, go for the hybrid model. It's going to get you even better mpgs, and it'll give you slightly better acceleration. The Elantra is still not among the best, segment best for base powertrains in terms of acceleration and fuel efficiency. But the Elantra N definitely fixes that with, you know, that nice injection of fire to kind of make the thing sportier, louder. It feels a lot more visceral. This just feels like a regular everyday commuter car, which is not a bad thing. I just don't know if personally I would choose the base engine of the Elantra. There's something about this car, while it is still nice, it does have some decent technology as well. The infotainment system works well, though it's a missed opportunity that Hyundai didn't add wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for this refresh. The screen is also a nice size. It just doesn't have kind of that special premium feel that you might get from like a Mazda 3. There's also the upcoming Civic Hybrid. The Corolla definitely feels kind of like on the same par as this vehicle. The Elantra definitely has more interior space. So if I was comparing it to a regular Corolla, I would probably consider the Elantra very heavily. Although Toyota has the better reputation for reliability, Hyundai definitely still has their, you know, they've been working so hard on it, and they also have that excellent warranty. Really, there's so many good options to choose from. You really can't go wrong in this segment. There's also the excellent Nissan Sentra, but overall, the refreshed Elantra, as mild a refresh it is definitely still worth a look if you guys are considering just an economy compact car. So with a little over 134,000 Elantras sold in America last year, like I said earlier, this is the second best-selling vehicle in the Hyundai portfolio. The Tucson outsells it by about 70,000 units. The Hyundai Santa Fe was dangerously close at around 131,000 units. Compared to the Civic and Corolla, this is around third place, but it's still a really good place to be for Hyundai, especially with everybody tending, or, you know, gravitating toward SUVs. It's nice to see a good chunk of people still buying an affordable compact sedan. So after spending the week with the Elantra Limited, remember I also had a chance to drive the Elantra N literally last week. Be sure to watch my video on that by clicking the link in the description below. The regular Elantra is certainly still a very nice commuter car. It's fuel efficient, it's comfortable, it's easy to drive. It's a little on the slow side. As you guys saw, 0 to 60 in like 8.7 seconds is definitely on the slower end. But for those of you who don't drive with a heavy foot like I do, it should have enough power. You may want to consider looking at the hybrid or the N line if you want a little bit more performance. The handling of the vehicle is also competent. The seats are comfortable. The tech is also average, although I really wish Hyundai would have added wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, especially in this refresh. The backseat has above average space at 38 inches of legroom. The trunk is also usable, and the design of this vehicle certainly still stands out. I'm just not entirely sure, this vehicle stands out in the way that some of its competitors do. There's a missed opportunity here because Hyundai doesn't offer all-wheel drive. On the Elantra, the interior does have some slightly cheaper materials. It doesn't really have a luxury or premium feel like what you'd find in like a Civic or a Mazda 3. But again, if none of that is important to you, the Elantra is still on the very affordable end of the segment, because if you want to get into like a base Elantra SE, these started around $22,000. The limited trim is going to start at around $27,000, and pretty much everything is standard. There's no additional options to add. The N line is around $1,000 more expensive than the limited, but you do get that turbocharged engine, independent suspension, that dual clutch. You'll have much more performance, but also reduced fuel efficiency. My test car here with the upcharge for the color and for the destination charge and a couple of accessories checks in at just over $28,000, around $28,400. Makes this again among the more affordable options, because I recently just tested a Toyota Corolla SE hybrid that was over $30,000. I also just tested a Nissan Sentra that was over $30,000. So again, the Elantra is on the cheaper end, but you are going to have to deal with an engine that has less refinement and less power than its competitors. And you also have to deal with an interior that's a little bit cheaper feeling, with not as much up-to-date tech that you're going to find in something like the new Kia K4, for example, which I'm hoping the Kia K4 I'll be able to drive sometime later this year. That is this car's platform mate, and it could be, again, the new segment leader. And I'll be able to tell you that as soon as I get my hands on one of those redesigned K4s. Well, all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Hyundai Elantra and this limited trim. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.